Hi, Kathy here. I have another story for us out of the book of Genesis. You know, we've been in this great series called The Seven Seas, and I wanted you to see if you remembered. I've got this list right here of so far what we've been able to have stories about. Okay, number one, creation, of course, that makes sense. And then we have corruption, number two. Three is confusion, and four, catastrophe. And especially when we talked about Noah and the ark, that was catastrophe when all humankind, except the 8 people on the ark, were wiped away in that great flood. Well, today's a very interesting story. Now remember, these are all true stories. They come from our Bible. They're coming from the book of Genesis right now. And God is trying to teach us and show us His way, and those who would not follow His way, what would happen. So last time, Mr. Eckel told us about Abraham, or Abram when he started out, Abram and Sarai, and how God called them to move from their hometown to a land that God would show them. And Abraham in faith did that. And then God said, I'm going to bless you so that your descendants, those who come from you, your children and your children's children and your children's children's children, on, all the earth would be blessed. Thank you, Mr. Eckel, for teaching us about that and showing us all those great pictures from last Sunday's lesson. So, whether you were in person or whether you were able to watch it on video, that was really great. And if you're able to come and be in person, hi for those who are in the 1-4 room, and those of you who are watching via the download or however you're receiving this, welcome. This Sunday, we're going to continue with the idea of catastrophe. And we're going to be talking about Lot, Abraham's nephew, and then we're going to be talking about the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah. And this all started when Lot and Abraham, who had lots and lots of animals, they had big families, and they had so many servants and so much going on, that they found out they couldn't live in the same area. It was just too much. Now, those of you who've been at home during this quarantine time, you may begin to understand that a little bit. There's just not enough room for everybody. So Abraham said to Lot, I want you to look at all this beautiful land that God has promised us, and I want you to choose land to live in so that we don't have fights among our people. Lot chose the very best. He found a valley that was full of green and just lots of places for the animals to graze, and that he could just have a great big ranch and just live in wealth and maybe even a little bit of fame, I don't know. So before we get started with the rest of the lesson, let's look at the memory verse that we have. God is not a God of disorder, but of peace. 1 Corinthians 14:33. God doesn't like things out of whack. He's made us so that if we follow Him and do what He has told us is right and good, then our lives are going to be full of order and peace. Isn't that a wonderful thing to know? But the world is full of people who don't want to follow God. So let's look at this a little bit more so. We've got Abraham and Lot who have moved away from each other. And you know, as Lot was looking out over his flocks and everything that he owned, that wasn't quite enough. He looked down into the valley, and down in the valley were some cities, and they seemed to have some appeal. That means they looked like they had something he needed to see. And so even though he might have known better, I'm not sure, but he sure didn't ask God. He moved down into the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah. But you know what? Sodom and Gomorrah were so wicked and so evil. The Bible doesn't even go into detail to tell us, because I think it must have just been so horrible, because God said, I need to wipe them out. I need to get rid of them. They are so wicked. They are not listening to me. They are not listening to my prophets. They are not listening to anything I have to say or wanting the good things that I have for them. And so, as God had made this plan, Abraham found it out, and he went to God and he said, but God, what if there are righteous people and you wipe out the cities? Oh God, that would not be good for your holy name. And God said, fine. And he and Abraham went back and forth, and finally God decided, if there are 10 righteous people, I will save the cities. But you know, there wasn't 10 righteous people. The only righteous people were Lot and his family. So let's hear a little bit more about this destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah.